Welcome to the next edition of Expert Showcase. On today's episode, we got Bri Seeley, who's going to be talking to you about the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. How you doing today, Bri?
Hi, good. How are you?
Excellent. Well, I'm looking forward to an epic episode and having a great time. We're doing this kind of like a bi-coastal thing. Bri's out in LA. I'm back here in the PA. So we're gonna have a lot of fun in the heat and So if you see the sweat, folks, when we're recording this, it's a little hot outside. So it's just we're a glutton for punishment. So if you see the sweat rolling down, it's okay. Our makeup girls and guys are on vacation today, right, Bri?
Yes. Good thing I have my bangs will cover up most of it, so it's fine.
Yeah, there you go. And if mine gets really bad, I'll just take the rest of my hair and pull it forward. So people, yeah, you wonder why I got long? No, it's never a reason. But anyway, enough about all that. You didn't come here to hear me talk gibberish. Well, maybe you did, but if you did, you got some problems. We need to get you to do another show. But that's besides the point. Today, Bri, I'm so looking forward to talking to you about, in part 2, about the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. Here in part 1, we always delve into the hero's journey because our audience loves to hear about where somebody was, what that turning point in their life was, and then the aftermath and how they got to where they are today. So in a quick nutshell, give us a quick nutshell of your hero's journey.
So just 18 short months ago, I was working in a job that I hated. I took the job 8 years previous, knowing that I didn't want the job, and I took it anyways. So did a job for 8 years that I hated, admitted that doing the job actually made me so unhappy that every time I did it, I kind of wanted to die. Was running a business that I really stressed me out and really made me unhappy, and I let go of that job, and the same day I got an invitation from Arianna Huffington to start writing on the Huffington Post and completely transformed my entire life in under a year.
Wow, I'm in shock. I mean, I know your background, but it's like, I feel completed now. We've had Who Wants to Be a Millionaire guests on, and now we have a Huffington Post author. I mean, this is, we've had nuclear physicists who are now coaches. This is just amazing. So, and I have to applaud you. That is the quickest summary that anybody's ever given us. So that's awesome as far as. Well, you did it, and you did
down to the main point.
Well, exactly, and so I think it's beautiful because you were doing. It's kind of interesting because you started off and it was like you kind of took that job. It's almost like it's kind of like that waitress job that you take, or in Adam Sandler's Who Wants to Be a Zohan movie, where his friend doesn't give him a job at the electronics store because he says once you get in, even regardless of whatever else, it's like you'll never leave.
Yeah.
But then it takes getting to a bad point and then coming out and cranking up on the other side to go through the aftermath of the whole thing. So let's dive right in. Take us back to the beginning, where it all started, and that when you took the job and what got you in and that sort of thing. Let's go all the way back to the beginning.
So it was 2006, and I had just moved back to the States. I had just gotten my master's degree in fashion design in Italy, and I had just moved back to the States, and I had a temporary 3-month job doing costume design. And I did it and really realized that it wasn't what I wanted to do at all, but I wanted to stay in the city that I was living, and so I managed to find a day job that would allow me to make a living and support myself while concurrently kind of figuring out the next steps. So that job, I was a receptionist. 6 months later, they offered me the job to be an intern for the same company. And 2 years later, I was promoted. Over a course of 8 years, my salary went up 6.5 times. So every time that I got really close to leaving, the universe would be like, oh, but are you sure? Because, here's a raise. And I knew, so the good news was I had a lot of freedom with it. So by the time I was done, I was only working 10 hours a week. And it was really great, but like I said, I finally got to the point where I admitted that I was so severely unhappy. I was on the phone with my mom one day, and she's like, I, at the same time, had started a business doing fashion. So I was running my fashion business and had my day job. And something fell through with the fashion, and I was talking to my mom, and she said, well, why don't you just work more hours? And I said, Mom, have you ever done something every single day that makes you want to die? I said, that is what that job is to me.
Yeah.
Even just looking at the laptop, not even, I worked remotely, so not even opening it. It would be sitting on my couch or whatever. I'd look at the laptop and I'd start having anxiety and just like fears and doubts and hesitation, like all this stuff. And that was like the turning, like I couldn't look back from there. After you admit something like that, how do you look backwards from that?
Exactly. And not to make light of your situation, that when, you know, and I only say this because I know some people who their parents would make the joke out of it. You know, the thing you hope you don't hear from your mom is, yeah, raising you every day was what I really didn't need. You know, I mean, so she gave you support. I guess that's the, you know, that was partly, like I said, I don't want to make light of the situation, but, you know, I'm guessing your mom gave you support after that and said, you know, and let me ask, what was her reaction when you asked her that question?
Well, she called a friend and was like, will you please go check on her and just make sure, like, I don't think anything's going to happen, but would you please just go check on her? No, it really became like you know, I called her a lot after that to kind of talk to her, and she called me a lot to check in and really make a plan and kind of figure out like what the next steps were for me and my business. And that was in January of last year, and in May of last year, I was cutting fabric at my sewing table and had this epiphany. So my fashion brand was always about inspiring women to be women, inspiring women to figure out what that meant on the inside and then dress like that, embody it out on the outside. And what I found was that women were kind of uncomfortable doing that. Like they didn't know how to, or they just weren't comfortable doing it. They would put on my pieces and be like, oh, this is so beautiful, I just love it, but I don't know where I'd ever wear it. So I was cutting fabric, and I had this epiphany. I was like, well, what if I can shift women's mindsets? And then if their mindset is shifted, then they'll want to start, you know, embodying it on the outside. And so I was like, well, oh, go ahead.
So let me interrupt for a second, because that kind of sounds like that's around the turning point, right? That was where things changed from, you know, from where you were. And that's kind of that turning point. That's kind of the turning point moment. But
I didn't know it at the time, is the cool part.
Right. I'd like to ask you a couple more questions about the beginning, because I think it's really key, because you had started off, and I want to make sure I got something right. The job you kept getting promoted, was that kind of what you had taken that you thought was going to be temporary, but then it just turned into a longer term?
Yeah. I never, like I said, I never wanted that job, and my heart was never in it. I really only ever did it for the paycheck and the flexibility.
And so that's really a great example for our viewers of where they might be stuck and not living a truly remarkable life, because they might have gotten into something, and whether it's money or something else, something is keeping them stuck there that they... Is it fair to say that you looked at the money as a good reason to stay?
Oh yeah, it was the only reason I stayed.
So,
the only reason.
Yeah. So the key there is, even if it was the only reason, it was the good. It was, and let's face it. Unfortunately, money rules the world, at least in our Western culture. Now, you can say that money, you know, provides two things: happiness and money provides choices and gives you options, which can lead to happiness and all the other stuff, and it can make memories. But, you know, let's face it, the almighty dollar is a key to, you know, Western survival.
Yeah. And then, you know, the job provided me so much. It did really provide me so much. You know, I sit here and can say that I hated it, but at the same time, you know, I bought a house at the age of 26. And, you know, 3 years later, I sold that house and moved to Los Angeles and was able to take that job with me to Los Angeles. And I was able to survive in Los Angeles. You know, so it gave me a lot, and it gave me a lot of freedom, it gave me a lot of flexibility, and it really opened some doors for me that I don't know if I would have taken without it. So it was kind of like that double-edged sword, you know?
And that's such a great perspective to have on it. And like I said, we'll definitely, in the second part, we're going to talk about the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. But would it be fair to say that sometimes people look at things and make decisions that are keeping them from living a truly remarkable life, and they just settle for a good life, so to speak? In other words, they settle for a job. They settle for a job they just don't like, or they might not like because the paycheck is great, or because they like the people. I mean, there's another one. Oh, I love the people I work with, but I hate the job. Well, is it really worth it? So you would say that's fair to say?
Absolutely. And, too, a lot of what I see as well is that a lot of people feel stuck in that they don't know what else they do. So it's been something that they've done so long that they're not able to see or open up to the possibility that there's something else on the other side. And so they just stay there because, either the pay is great, the coworkers are great, the flexibility is great, or they simply have no idea what's on the other side.
Now let me ask you a question before we wrap up the beginning and get into the turning point. As far as the beginning goes, was that part of what was going on with you? Were you kind of clouded by the money and everything else and not, I'll say, able to see what was on the other side, or not want to see what was on the other side, at least for a time? Not near the turning point in the beginning, but was that something you fell into?
Absolutely. And, even while I was concurrently running the fashion business, like, I'll go into it a little bit more, but I always thought that fashion was my thing. I had, put myself in this little box, and I was like, I'm a fashion designer. This is what I do. And I liken it to literally, those horses that have the blinders on that can't see anywhere else? That is what I felt like. That's how I felt like I was living, is that I was so focused on thinking that it was supposed to look one way that I just wasn't able to see the other opportunities that were coming into my life.
Excellent.
Until the blinders got ripped off.
And so really the turning point in this whole thing, the turning point ends up becoming, I think, the blinders really getting ripped off. That's what started everything, right?
Yeah.
So take us through that a little bit. Take us through, because I'm sure a lot of people right now, like we were just talking about at the beginning, are stuck in jobs or positions, and this will lead into part 2 where we talk about the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. But here in part 1, let's focus on the turning point in your hero's journey. I think it really leads into where, a lot of people have these blinders on, whether it's money, whether it's power, whether it's what they've been told they can or can't do all their life. So what helped you, either what ripped the blinders off for you, or what helped you get those blinders off?
I woke up one morning to an email from my employer saying, hey, since you're only a part-time employee, we're going to cut your pay in half. Yeah.
Yeah, that'll tend to do it.
So my only priority with that job was making money. And all of a sudden, they want me to do the exact same job. I was nationally certified. I was actually really good at what I did, despite not liking it at all. And they wanted me to do all things remaining equal, wanted to cut my pay in half. And I was like, absolutely not. That is never happening. And so I was literally essentially shoved out of the nest to figure it out.
Yeah, and this episode is all about you. I can definitely feel where you're coming from. I know what finally shoved me out of the nest was the call that's saying, well, we've decided to eliminate your, basically the call to, well, we're going to eliminate your position, and that was the second time within 2 years, within basically within the span of a year with 2 separate companies. Yeah, that's what kind of gave me the shove and the wake up call to get back to doing what I needed to do. But
yeah.
So what you're really saying, what people should be looking out for is they may get to this really bad point, and they may get the blinders ripped right off by having the one thing that's keeping them there be taken away. Just like good people. If the people are really good, you could walk in and everybody be laid off tomorrow, right? And
the thing that I always think, and it's funny because I was super conscious of this as it was happening, and I still chose to have the experience that I had, but I believe that, I could have chosen to take those blinders off myself. I mean, I knew. I'm a very aware person, and I was very aware of what was going on, and I knew that if I didn't choose to take them off, that at some point the universe was going to forcibly take them off. And I knew that was the situation. And so, I believe that's kind of true with all of us. If we are failing to look at what our place and purpose in this world is, we can either look at it voluntarily, or we can be forced to look at it. And I knew that at some point I was going to be forced out of that job in a really uncomfortable way. I knew that probably a year into that job.
It's the it's a concept I call the feather in the 2x4. You know, whether you believe in God, universe, whatever higher power you believe in, they will give you a feather and just tickle you. And feathers are nice, they're fun, they make you laugh, and they kind of, you know, but they also get you to scratch your nose or get you to start to change a little bit. And if you don't change, then the 2x4 comes out. And while, you know, while God and the universe may be loving, when the 2x4 comes out, all bets are off. And all, you know, it starts off maybe with a light tap, but if you don't listen, you're going to get cracked upside the head with a 2x4. And it, you know, if you've ever been hit by a 2x4, you know, even if you're, you know, maybe not into that sort of thing, if you've ever been hit by a 2x4, it doesn't feel good. So really, your 2x4 moment came when they took, you know, when they wanted to take half your pay away. So how did you immediately, and we'll get to the aftermath in a second, how did you immediately react to that? Basically, hey, we're taking half your pay away.
The second I got the email, I was sitting on my couch and I immediately, I mean, I could feel myself just spiraling into the fear of, oh my God, how am I going to pay my bills? What am I going to do? How am I going to be able to survive in Los Angeles? Am I going to have to get another job? Just like all of that stuff started spinning. And so my first tactic was to reach out to a really good friend and really have her like talk me off the ledge, because I knew that I needed an outside perspective to remind me of what I intrinsically knew inside. And that was that there was a silver lining in the situation. So I, you know, going back to what I was saying before about how I had this idea to start this little blog project, that happened at the beginning of May. I launched the blog project on my birthday, and a week after that, I had seen Arianna Huffington speak at a conference. And I took down all these notes and all these great things, and that was literally the day before I got that email. So on a Tuesday, I saw Arianna Huffington speak. On Wednesday morning, I opened up my computer and had that email.
Oh, that's awesome.
So I called my girlfriend, and when I got off the phone with her, you know, I had stopped crying and was like, okay, now what? And I had this little voice inside that was like, email Arianna Huffington. She gives out her email at the end of all of her speeches. And then I had the classic, like, angel and devil. The angel was like, do it, just do it, it's fine. And the devil was like, who do you think you are? You're not important enough. She will never respond to your email. Even if you do get a response, it's going to be an intern that says, you know, we'll get back to you in 3 to 5 business days or whatever.
Yeah.
And I sat there and I literally had this whole thing. I just felt like, you know, being battled by both sides. And I just got to this point where I was like, what's it going to hurt? If you don't reach out to her, then essentially, you know, and this became my mantra last year, if you don't ask, the answer's always no.
Yeah.
And so I sat on my couch and I emailed her and I said, you know, I just got some seemingly like bad news, and I'm doing my best to stay in a place of love and see it as a blessing in disguise. And here are all the words that you said to me yesterday, or not me, but the group, I guess, that I'm really leaning on right now. And I just wanted to reach out and say thank you, because I really needed it. And then I told her about the blog project that I had started, and clicked send, and I don't even know what I did for the rest of the day. I probably laid on my couch and watched Netflix and cried. But I 5 hours later had an email from her that said, you know, thanks for reaching out. I'm really glad that you know, I helped, and would you like to start writing on the Huffington Post? I've CC'd our senior lifestyle editor here to help get you started. Awesome. And I was like, speaking of another 2x4 moment, I mean, I essentially, ooh, my kitty is trying to jump up on my lap. I essentially got 2 2x4 moments in a course of 5 hours, and one was good, and one was not so good. But the good one was the one that was like, oh my gosh, like, what I'm doing actually has some power to it. Like, if Arianna Huffington is saying that my words are going to impact lives, like, I better listen.
Yeah, exactly. You know, I think it's so interesting because as we wrap up, you know, the turning point and then head into the aftermath, what I find very interesting was that even though you didn't like the job and were only doing it for the money, when you recounted the story, the way you recounted it was you weren't even considering about getting another job. You were looking at getting a second job and how you're going to pay your bills. So at that point, you had been so into what you were doing that even though it wasn't right, it was your habit, and it was something stopping you from living a a truly remarkable life. So then
Yeah.
you went through everything, and then we get to you went through all of that, and then we get into the aftermath, and the aftermath starts with that going to that conference. And it's so beautiful how the universe, how God, the universe, everything can conspire to help you at the same time when you're in the right area and when you need it. So you sent the email off to Ariana. You kind of got started, and I guess is that what then started your writing and personal development and personal growth of other people? Is that kind of what started you down that path, that getting that response from her?
Yeah, it totally was. I mean, I started writing for the Huffington Post, and basically what I realized in that moment was, I'd started that 31-day blog project, but while I was at the conference, my intuition was like, this needs to be more than a blog project. Like, it's more than 31 days. You need to do a book, it needs to be a movement, and you need to impact millions of women's lives. And at the time, I was like, I don't really have time for that because I got this job and I got all this stuff going on. So, when life settles down a little bit, then, we'll take a look at it. And all of a sudden, I had time in my life. I had space. And so I decided, it was entitled The Inspirational Woman Project. And I really just kind of took it and ran with it. I decided to turn it into a coffee table book. So July 8th of last year, I did my first interview. I did 99 interviews with women over the course of 8 weeks. I launched a Kickstarter and I raised $15,000. I concurrently, while writing for the Huffington Post, had a blog go viral and republished in 4 different languages on several different continents, and was on the Today Show, and like all of this stuff, just like all these doors kept opening and it was like just complete testament that I was on the right path. And so 6 months from the day I started the interviews, I had 500 copies of the books in my hand. And I thought, at the time I was like, oh, good, well, I did that. Now I can go back to fashion. Because I had put my fashion brand on hold. And so I tried to go back to fashion this year and did a new collection, created everything, got it all photographed, was getting ready to start selling it. And I just had this moment where I was like, I don't care. Like, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be out on the ground, inspiring women, doing a second volume of the book, continuing to write, and now, coaching women to do the same thing in their lives.
Excellent. So I commend you on that, and I want to ask a question real quick, because to me it sounded like what happened was you became successful, but then something inside of you said, but I want to see if I can still do what I used to do. Even if it's not right for me, it's just kind of, I want to go back because I want to see if I can still do it. And so you went back to fashion. Did that kind of have anything in your conscious thought process, or maybe looking back to your subconscious thought, that it was kind of like, okay, yeah, I was successful at this, but this was just like a stopgap, and I'm going to go back and prove I'm really successful at fashion. Did that play it all into it?
Yeah, and I think my mindset going into the Inspirational Woman Project was that it was just going to be like a little project, like just a little side thing to kind of keep me occupied and get me through this rough spot in life, and then like I would just go back to fashion. Like, that was always the plan, because like I said, I have always put myself in that box of like, I'm a fashion designer. This is what I do. I've been sewing since I was 7. I have 2 degrees in fashion design. Like, this is what I do. And what I really realized this year was that while that's a piece of me, and I do believe that I will relaunch my fashion brand at some point in the future, it's not where my heart is right now.
And I think I think you said this earlier, and it might have been when we were prepping for the show. It's a great thing to have as you inspire women, and as they change, as people change their perception about themselves. Because let's face it, part of what happens when you aren't inspired is you dress uninspired, and once you become inspired, you're looking for the next step. And there's a reason why guys still wear suits. There's a reason why women still wear dresses, because you feel empowered and you feel you feel better. So I mean, like I said, you just said earlier when we were prepping, do you kind of picture that as you grow in your inspirational business, then giving people a way to take the next step through, inspiring them through fashion and saying, okay, you've made this journey. Now let's go ahead and take the next step and, take your fashion and bring your fashion and your fashion and everything in line with the new inspired you. Is that anywhere in the plans at this point?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is. I still love designing. I actually still, have my sewing studio, and I go in and create now for me on a regular basis. And I do happen to have 2 wedding clients this year. But I definitely would love to bring it back, because I think that is a really powerful thing for all of us to not only live a remarkable life on the inside, but then display it to the outer world as well. And the unfortunate thing is I feel like a lot of that has been lost in our country and our culture. Like I said, I lived in Europe for 2 years, and watching the way that they adorn themselves in public, it's just a completely different process than the way that we do here in our country. And I would still love to make an impact in that area.
And it's also a different attitude. From a lot of the Europeans I talked to, it's a different attitude, because they're not out dressing the way they are to impress anybody. They're just dressing to feel good, and they like the way it is. I've had a lot of people in my life who, I used to always be suit, tie, the whole 9 yards, because I liked it. And had a lot of people be like, well, what are you trying to impress people? And it's like what I realize is people here in America never understand. You dress nice, and really you dress to the nines, so to speak, and they think you're trying to impress people. And it's like, no, maybe that is just the way you feel comfortable. So anyway, we could probably talk about fashion forever. I can see, it's funny because I can see you love inspiring people, but I also see the laughter and the passion in your eyes for fashion. So I'm glad to hear that in the aftermath of this whole thing, that part of what's happened is you're inspiring people, which that I have to pause for a second to take a breath. I only breathe once every 30 or 40 minutes unless I'm on an interview, then I try and breathe when everybody else is talking. That's just kind of a joke, but no, it's great that you got into something, and to kind of wrap the hero's journey up, you got into something that was thought to be a temporary thing, and it turned into a long-term thing, and turned into something that you weren't happy with, but you almost got yourself in a place where you needed to be there. And then kind of like everything fell out from under you, it kind of fairly quickly. Because let's face it, anytime you lose half of your income, that's kind of like the bottom dropping out. It's yes, still having half is better than nothing, but it's almost as bad as having nothing. It's not really half the way between everything and nothing. It's a lot closer. I can identify it. Losing half is a lot closer to losing everything than it is to only losing half for people who haven't been there. But then you've done so much great stuff in the aftermath where you've redeveloped yourself, and you've taken advantage and you've taken action, which is the key. And that's what people have to understand, is when you go through this journey, and if you really want to live a truly remarkable life, part of what you have to do is take action.
Absolutely.
So before we take a break, the one other thing I wanted to key in on is part of the action you took is you reached out to a friend. And that could be a coach, it could be a family member, but the reason people like Bri are as successful as they are and love working with people and doing what they do is because they're good at it. So sometimes a friend is okay to reach out to, other times you need to reach out to somebody like Bri and say, hey, how can I live a truly remarkable life, and how can I get through this? Right, Bri?
I think so. I mean, even as a lifestyle coach, I have a business coach that I reach out to. And, I don't know, we may or may not get into this, but I was in a car accident in March. And it was the day after I signed my contract with my business coach. And the first thought I had instantaneously when I got in that car accident was, oh my God, I have to cancel my contract. I can't do this. And she was the first one I called. And again, totally talked me off the ledge. And it is really important to have people in your life, whether they be coaches and professionals or therapists or whatever, or friends that know you well enough to be that support for you, and not talk to you from their perspective or their filter, but just really be a sounding board for for your process and your experience.
Exactly. And because people right now, part of the reason we do this on Expert Showcase, and because we want you to get to know our guests, and it was incredible getting to know Bri, we also want you as a viewer to understand if you're going through something similar, our guests can help and Bri can help you. So you definitely want to stick around. If you're going through your own hero's journey at this point, if you're in your turning point, maybe before or maybe after, stick around, because in the next segment we're going to talk about the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. So we're going to take a very, very quick break, grab a quick drink, or do what you got to do, but stick with us. We're going to take a very, very quick break, and we'll be right back. If you're a coach and realize that the power of branded video and the power of having a branded vlog, a branded webinar, or a branded web TV show is what's going to set you apart from your competition, then you want to head over to VideoContent.Agency, take a look around, get to know us a little bit first, then reach out to us. Let's have a quick conversation, see if we're a good fit to work together, and if we are, we'll help you, and we'll create a branded vlog, a branded webinar, webinar series, or web TV show specifically for you and your great message. And we're back. We're back with our epic guest today, Bri Seeley. Bri, we've had such a great time talking so far. Your hero's journey is amazing, and I'm honored you're on the show today. This is, we love having epic guests on. Then again, I'm partial. I think all the guests we have on are epic, but this has just been truly remarkable. I'll use your word. It's been remarkable so far today. Your journey has been awesome. And for those of you who didn't watch the first piece of today's show, if you're just seeing this as a snippet, go back and watch Bri's hero's journey and get to know more about Bri, and then join us for what we're going to be talking about next, which is the secrets to living a truly remarkable life. So Bri, let's give the folks a little bit of a taste. I'll give them the bullet points in a second, but let's give them a quick taste and a summary of what we're going to talk about today and the secrets to living a truly remarkable life.
So I believe that it is absolutely possible to love every aspect of your life. I believe that you don't have to compartmentalize your life. You don't have to shut down. You don't have to compromise your desires. You don't have to compromise your passion. And you can, if you're really truly connected with your purpose, that it is possible for you to confidently create a life that you love in every day, in every way.
Wow, that is awesome. That sounds great. I'm so looking forward to it, and looking forward to learning a lot, because living a great, remarkable life is an awesome goal to achieve, and I can't wait to hear more. The 3 bullet points we're going to talk about today are prioritize you, trust your vision, and learn to receive. So let's dig right in. When you say prioritize you, what are we talking about here?
So I have found, and I said this earlier in the first half of the show, that typically, even if you do get an idea of what that purpose is for you, if you don't have space in your life, and if you don't make yourself and your vision a priority in your life, then it will not ever happen. It won't. Oh, there's Kitty. Sorry.
It's okay. Hi, Kitty.
If I'm sitting still in one spot, they're all over me. They're like, oh my gosh, pay attention to me, because I'm never sitting still.
Because they want you to prioritize them at that given point.
Oh yeah, that's how cats are. They just work that way. So I think it's really important to make space in your life and make space for you. I teach this a lot with my clients, in that, how many of us walk around all day, every day, and our calendar is just absolutely packed, one thing after another, right? My phone is constantly dinging about, like, you have to be on this Skype call and this meeting and this, all these different things. So if you're not making time for you to connect with your dreams and your vision, they're probably not going to reveal themselves to you. I always liken this, especially for women, as a closet. So if you have a closet that's jam-packed and you literally cannot fit another piece of clothing in there, you could buy new hangers, but they're not going to fit anyways. Where are they going to go? What do you need to do? You have to start clearing stuff out. You have to make space for it. So if you want newness, if you want to discover your purpose, if you want to get clarity around what you're supposed to be doing, you have to make time for it. And if that means you're scheduling it into your calendar, then you absolutely have to do that. I mean, I encourage all my clients to make dates with themselves, essentially,
Exactly.
like you would with another person.
Exactly. I mean, there's an old saying goes something like, if you don't schedule your calendar, somebody else will fill it for you, or something close to that. Where, if you leave time open in your calendar and you let people fill it, people will take that time and fill it with their own priorities. Now, when you're talking about people prioritizing themselves, do you get the pushback a lot that people say, hey, I don't have the time to prioritize me. My calendar is already full. Do you get that pushback a lot?
Oh, absolutely. And my response always, and this is not just even to clients, people always say, well, I don't have the time. If it's a priority to you, if it's important to you, you will make time, period. Hard stop. Like, that's just, and if you're not willing to make the time, then it's clearly not important to you. So is the pain of having a calendar packed with stuff that you don't like, is that more important than canceling a few appointments and making time to connect with you and your vision?
Right, exactly. And I'm going to guess, and correct me if I'm wrong, is another technique you use is to tell people, look, take a look at the meetings you're making right now, and if this pain is immense, when can you start planning on yourself? And when you can, then stop making meetings. So if your calendar's booked for the next month, then commit to yourself that 31 days from now, or 32, that's when you're going to start. And when people ask you for meetings, you're going to basically block out the time that far ahead. I mean, do you ever use that strategy? And if so, does it work? Does it not work?
I don't. I'm typically a little bit more intense. So I'm basically like, if you're not willing to prioritize this, then I kind of don't want to, I can't work with you. Because if you're not willing to make time for your dreams to become a reality now, then you're clearly not ready for your dreams. If you're as ready as you say you are, you will take the steps to prove to yourself and the universe that you are there.
So you basically say, look, if you're ready, you got to start canceling some of these meetings you've set up. That's kind of right. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah.
That's
really
awesome.
too. I try and start my clients on 15 minutes a day. Who doesn't have 15 minutes a day? I mean, you could literally get up 15 minutes earlier.
Yep.
You could put your hair in a top knot instead of blow drying it that morning. I mean, you can make 15 minutes a day if it is truly that important to you. If you want to live a truly remarkable life, you have to start somewhere.
That's awesome. I'm glad you say 15 minutes. It's funny. Some of the people, when I work with clients, they say, hey, I don't have, when they struggle to create content and everything, they say, I don't have an extra hour a week to do it. And I say, I guarantee I can give you an extra hour. And they're really shocked. And I say, yeah, you wake up 5 minutes early and go to bed 5 minutes later. And then all of a sudden people start to get the thing. It's like, wait a minute, if I wake up 5 minutes early and go to bed 5 minutes later, that's 10 minutes a day. That's an hour a week. Even forget about Sunday. There's your hour a week you can do it. So, but I love your concept of 15 minutes and starting people off with 15 minutes, because you have to build momentum. I mean, it's great to be hard, but I think what you're trying to do there, and correct me if I'm wrong, is you're building momentum so that they start to take responsibility to prioritize themselves and then build the momentum where they are that ultimate priority, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And, as it progresses, I mean, I started with maybe 20, 25 minutes a day, and I'm up to, my mornings are 2 hours long before I even, get out the door in the morning to go to work. That's my time to spend with me and really truly fill my cup to make sure that I'm coming from a good place so that when I go out and serve the world, I have something to give.
Yeah, that is so beautiful. I tell you, it's interesting because, so let me ask you a quick question, because it does have something to do with prioritizing you. In that 2 hours, you have affirmations and that stuff you do to kind of reinforce. Excellent.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I have a whole ton of stuff that I do. I mean, depending on the day, I try to incorporate some sort of body movement. So whether it's yoga or I throw myself dance parties a lot in the mornings or something like that. I also do my gratitude journal in the morning and kind of set up my goals for the day. I'm a huge proponent. I love my breakfast. So I sit down. I have a sit-down breakfast every single morning. Usually involves some sort of kiddie time. I have a visualization, I have affirmations. So I do, you know, a whole ton of stuff. And I'm on a really strict eating regimen right now. So I am prepping food in the morning as well. And just, I mean, it's all sorts of stuff. But it's time for me to really take care of me and my needs.
That is awesome. And part of the reason I bring up about the affirmations is one of the things when I deal with clients from the, I'll say from the more ethereal side of things I do, they don't, some people say, well, I don't want to do affirmations because I don't want to look as stupid as Steve Carell did in Evan Almighty standing himself in front of a mirror. And it's like, look, or Bruce Almighty, I forget which one it was in, but it's like, look, I was going to say, it's like, yes, that movie gave affirmations a very, very bad name, but you got to understand it was a comedy, it was made to be funny. So if you just kind of understand where it's coming from, and they work when you prioritize, you know, when you prioritize you. And that really leads into the next piece about trusting your vision, because at least I would interpret, and then I'm going to throw it to you and ask you, but I would interpret and say, if you can't prioritize you, and if you're not making you important, that for me it would sound like it would be tougher to trust your vision, because if you treated everything else as more important than you, then it's tougher to trust your vision. When it comes to trust your vision, is that true? And let's dig a little bit deeper into trusting your vision.
Yeah, I mean, I totally believe that. If you don't have a relationship with you, how are you supposed to trust you? I mean, do you trust people that you don't have a relationship with on the street? In Los Angeles? Or no?
I was going to say Los Angeles? No.
No. So having that relationship with you is absolutely the first step, because once you have that relationship with you and you've created that space, your parts and pieces of your vision are going to start to drop in, especially if you're, you know, another thing I do a lot is meditation. And creating that space and having that silence allows so much information to come. But if it's coming and you don't trust yourself because you don't know you and you don't know if it's a good thing for you or not, how are you going to move forward? I mean, yeah, they're absolutely, I mean, it's really integral to have kind of like all the steps lined up and to do them in a really specific order too, I believe.
Yeah, and that's great. And you know, when you're talking about trusting your vision, like you said, you know, if you don't believe you and don't trust you, it's tough to trust your vision. When you say trust your vision, which vision are you talking about? Like the vision that you create yourself for the future? Are you talking about a vision board, so to speak? Are we going deeper than just basically the 3 words, trust your vision? Or give us a little more about trusting your vision.
I think it's a combination of a few different things. So I think it's both subconscious and conscious creation. So for me, you know, I've gone through meditations of visioning processes through meditation. And in fact, I'm actually doing the 2nd volume of my book right now. And the only reason I'm doing that is because I got led through a vision. And in the vision, I looked up at my bookcase, and there were 5 copies of the book, 5 volumes of the book on the bookcase. And I was like, oh, so apparently I'm supposed to be doing another volume of the book. So sorry, there's someone doing all sorts of crazy things outside. So I think it's a combination of both. I'm all about vision boarding. I do a huge vision board at the beginning of every year. And then every 3 months, I'll go back through and kind of reassess what's on there. And I'll cover some stuff up, I'll take some stuff off, I'll add some stuff to it, you know, so I'm kind of constantly visioning. The other thing that I just did this week is that I actually recorded, and this kind of came from that meditated vision, but it also kind of came from a conscious creation of what I want in my life. And I took my cell phone and I recorded a 6-minute just vision, me speaking my vision, and me, you know, and I listen to it every single morning when I'm in bed right now. It's the first thing I turn on, and it leads me through an entire day and my ideal day and how I'm feeling and what I'm doing and who I'm interacting with and all of these things. So I believe it's a combination both of subconscious and conscious creation.
Excellent. So real quick, this is kind of an extension, but a little bit off the topic. You said you listen to that recording every day. Do you listen to it after you wake up or before or as you're waking up? Like, in other words, do you wake up and then turn it on and listen to it, or do you have it set to an alarm where it starts before you wake up?
Ooh, I should see if I can do that. I don't even know if I can do that. That's a really good idea.
Thank
I
you.
turn it on.
Yeah,
I turn it on.
and the reason I ask is, as you know from already talking about the subconscious, our subconscious is more open. There's no gate on it. Whatever comes in, it allows it to go in. It allows it to process and everything. And I found great success with both myself and clients by saying, look, you have to let your subconscious work. So if it's falling asleep to TV or radio, or if it's waking up to something, if you can put something on like that you want to listen to and learn without it waking you up and just being at the end of your sleep cycle, it'll actually get deeper inside you, and it'll get deeper in your subconscious than if you're listening to it when you're completely awake and aware. Because even great meditators, when they're completely awake and aware, it becomes difficult to let it go all the way down in. So, but yeah,
I'm gonna have to look into that.
you have to report back. We'll have to do another episode on the results of that.
Yeah, right? I do it in the mornings because I am still kind of in that like half awake space, and I usually, the cats are usually in bed with me and they're like purring, and so I'm usually in this just like really open kind of like grounded state, and so I do it in the mornings because my head is not yet full of stuff.
Yeah.
But I like the idea of maybe playing it like as I'm waking up. That would be. I'm gonna look at my settings on my phone.
There you go.
See if I can do that.
Awesome. Or just as a side note, the other thing that might help, I know some phones, the alarms have different settings to where you can actually set a wave file or a sound file to be the chime. So even if it's not the video, maybe you can just take it and have, if you're technical and can do it, great. If not, somebody technical, just grab the sound out of it and turn it into, a ringtone or a file that your phone can play, and then have that play, and then set another alarm for you to wake up afterwards. So just a thought, as we take a complete digression off of trusting your vision, but it all does get back to vision. And let's face it, to kind of start to bring us a little bit together on trusting your vision, that is really the key. I mean, if you all think about what we just talked about, if you don't trust your vision, you're not even going to think to try and record your vision and listen to it when you're in a subconscious state, or an unconscious state, so to speak. So you have to trust your vision. If you could give somebody one real quick suggestion on how to start trusting their vision, where would somebody start to start trusting their vision?
I would say that when you start prioritizing you and you've created that space, use those 15 minutes to start like diving into some questions. The other thing that I recommend for all my clients is to have a journal on you at all times, so that when your vision comes to you and you get those little pops of inspiration, you have somewhere to put it immediately. So how many of us have had those $1 million ideas and are like, I'll never forget that, and then 2 hours later you're like, oh, what was that again? So I really recommend that. And even if it sounds ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous, write it down. You never know what will come from that idea spiraling into other ideas. So when a vision or when an inspiration comes to you, I really recommend for people just to document everything and journal on it some more. I mean, get an idea and sit down for 5 minutes and just write on that idea. What could it look like? Without stopping yourself about like, oh, well, I can't do it because, or what if this happened, or what if that happened. The what ifs are a total killer.
Yeah.
Assuming they're what ifs like based out of fear. If they're what ifs based out of like, ooh, what if I could like change the world, or what if I could become the president, or things like that, like those are good what ifs. But the bad what ifs, where if you're journaling and you're like, oh, but what, how am I going to pay my bills, or da 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 da. Those things don't even come into play when you're starting to create a vision.
Right, and I think that's so key. The other key point that you just brought up about trusting your vision is just trusting that whatever you're seeing is meant to be right in some way, shape, or form, and meant to lead you to the next thing, which really leads us into being able to learn to receive. Because in the end, as we just talked about trusting your vision, that's great to trust the visions you get. But if you're not open and receptive to receiving them and other things, trusting it, if you don't get it first, you can't trust it, so to speak, right?
Yeah, and I had a girlfriend of mine say to me several years ago, like, I used to be the kind of person where if someone tried to open a door for me, I would purposefully go in the other, like, I'm like, I can open my own door, thank you very much. And she looked at me and said, if you can't even receive something as simple as someone holding a door open for you, how do you think you're going to be able to receive the gifts and the blessings that the universe has in store for you? And it was a total, again, kind of a 2x4 moment where I was like, oh my gosh, how am I going to receive all the goodness of the universe if I can't even receive the little things? I mean, how many of us brush off compliments and say, oh, no, you know, I got this old thing 10 years ago. It's not a big deal.
Yeah, well, and even learning to receive, you know, do you think not receiving things is part of our current modern Western culture that's teaching everybody to be so independent that the reception of anything now is beginning to be looked at as a negative? Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely. And two, you know, I feel like we've also kind of been indoctrinated to believe that receiving is like greedy or that it's selfish in some way. And the reality of it is that it's not at all.
Yeah, I mean, taking is greedy. I mean, physically going and stealing is greedy. But if somebody's walking up to you and say, you know, I'd like to give you this, or I'd like to help you with that, or whether it's a compliment, then it's just being, you know, it's being nice and it's being receptive. And like you said, if you can't even receive something small, how can you expect to get anything larger? Because whether you believe in God or the universe, I'm one of those kind of weird people who believes in both, and I believe in a higher power that I call God. I also believe that the universe is out there, and they kind of work together in this symbiotic relationship that helps the people that, you know, our human race, so to speak, get better, at least the ones who want to receive. But it's like, you know, they say, you know, God or the universe only give you as much as you can handle. Well, if you can't handle a small compliment or a small gift, how do you expect a big one to come, right?
Absolutely. And if you're consistently proving to the universe that you can do it on your own and that you don't need its help, it's going to believe you. And it's going to not give you stuff because you don't believe that it's there anyways.
Right.
It's definitely, I mean, for me, it's been a practice of like actively and consciously, when I'm in situations, like just taking it in and being really genuine and then saying thank you from a really heartfelt and genuine place. And I really think that's the first step towards really learning to receive. And like I said, it's a process. I'm by no means perfect at it. I just had someone remind me the other day, they're like, you're not receiving very well right now, are you? So it's a process.
I was going to say, that's okay. I'll start throwing compliments at you until you get upset, and then you'll know where your reception level, you know, your bucket is full. You know, I'll have to pause for those about to go off on a complete tangent. But it's awesome about you talking about learning to receive and doing the small things, you know, the small things first. And I love how you talk about if you try to do it all on your own, then eventually the universe is going to basically say, fine, you can do it, have a blast. So let me ask you a question about that. Do you look at it as co-creating then with the universe, your success and everything, and realizing that you're doing some of it on your own, some of it with help, and that through the combination of the two things, and then you being receptive to what's coming in, that's what's creating the success? Is that the way you look at it, or do you look at it some way different?
Absolutely. No, I mean, I believe, you know, while I am a fiercely independent woman, that's my mom's fault. I believe that it's absolutely a co-creation. I mean, I don't believe that I got the idea to email Arianna Huffington on my own. That's not really, you know, I'm a pretty bold person, but that never would have occurred to me. So, you know, I believe that it's things like, you know, the universe gives me the inspiration to do these things, and then it's my responsibility to take action on them. You know, I could have sat there and allowed my inner naysayer to be like, you're not important enough. And I could have allowed that. And I could have said, no, thank you, universe. I'm going to not take your inspiration, and I'm just going to sit here and wallow in my, you know, self-pity. I had that choice, but I chose instead to engage in that co-creation. I took the inspiration from the universe, and then I took action.
Wow, that's so profound, and I really want people to hear and understand that. When you get the inspiration, you have to take action. And then It's basically, sometimes it's like rolling the dice, right? And it's like the email to Ariane Huffington. So I think if we transcribe this, we have enough SEO. I joke around with some other guests about that. I swear, I forget what we did, but anyway, that's my bright squirrel. Thank goodness there are no real squirrels in here because I'd be in deep trouble. But no, it's so awesome to hear you talk. Back to the important thing, which is you and what you're talking about. It's so awesome to hear that you took action and that you didn't let the gremlins, as we like to talk about, overcome it. I think a lot of people are watching and saying, okay, great, I kind of get to learn to receive, and I know I have to be more receptive, but I still have a lot of these gremlins. Completely off the topic, what was something you did to overcome your gremlins, and I'll say just do it, like Nike says?
So for me, and then also for a lot of women, like I said, I'm in the process of doing another 99 interviews right now, and one of the questions that I've added to volume 2 of the book that was not in volume 1 of the book was, how do you deal with your inner naysayer? And I think the thing that's really important is that you cannot shun it, and you cannot bury it, and you cannot stuff it. You have to give it space. So like I was saying that I had my angel and my devil, like battling it out on, on my shoulders, you can't ignore it. If you ignore it, it's going to come back bigger, badder, and louder. So really giving it space and hearing what it has to say. Your inner naysayer is there for a reason. It is there for a reason. It is there at the end of the day to protect you. Unfortunately, it's also taken over the role of keeping you from doing things that your heart wants to do that could potentially really change your life. So for me, it's allowing it space and listening to what it has to say, and then figuring out where the truth is in that.
Yeah.
What is the truth in what it's saying? Is there any truth in it? Is it trying to protect me? Or is it trying to keep me from making a quantum leap? And if you can really step back and have that kind of logical distinction between what the voice is trying to do for you in that exact moment, I think is really important. And then if it's just there trying to keep you from taking a quantum leap, you do it anyways. You say, thank you. I'm super grateful that you're there. And honestly, I am surprised a lot of the women that I've been doing interviews with have this very similar technique. And I love hearing about it because we all have it. That's the thing. No matter how successful you are, I don't care. Everyone has an inner naysayer.
Yeah.
But I think the thing that differentiates people that are leading successful lives or, remarkable lives is that they know how to handle it. And they handle it with love and gratitude, and they do it anyways.
Yeah, and I love it. I'm so glad you made the comment about you basically say thank you and then do it anyway, because that's the point that I know a lot of clients I work with just haven't been able to get to. The fact that, hey, recognize it, and Sarah haven't been able to get to before they work with me is like, you have to recognize it and say, hey, thanks, I appreciate you're trying to keep me safe. But go pound sand at this point. I'm not gonna. It's kind of like, hey, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but guess what? I'm going to do it anyway, and I'm going to go have fun, and I'm going to be successful, and I'm going to succeed in it. So that is awesome. It's been epic talking with you, folks. We've got, as you can see on the screen, we've got a special announcement. What I want you to do, what I personally want you to do is head over right now. Okay, give it a couple of minutes because the web address will be on the screen. But head over to BriSeeley.com/mentor and take a look at what Bri's got to offer as far as her 8-week mentoring course. And there's a lot of great information on that page. There's a bunch of different links. If you didn't watch this whole episode, go back and watch the Hero's Journey with Bri and watch all these parts. You may have just picked this up, the last part number 3, where we talked about learn to receive. I'm sure after you watch this episode, or maybe even just after watching this piece, you'll know that Bri is one of the mentors you need to work with. So you need to head over to BriSeeley.com/mentor. You need to check out what Bri's got to offer, and then do what it takes to do whatever she's asking on that page, and do what it takes and reach out. I believe you'll be happy working with Bri as a mentor, and I believe she can make a lot of great changes in your life. So head over to BriSeeley.com/mentor, check everything out, do it. As soon as we're done with this episode, we've got a couple more seconds here, but as soon as we're done, head over and do it. And Bri, while they're pulling up their Internet Explorer or Safari or Chrome or Firefox or whatever, or Opera or whatever else I can say to get more SEO in this, while they're pulling up their internet browser, what final thoughts would you like to say to our viewing audience today?
I just, like I said when we opened the second half of this, I truly believe that everyone has the opportunity to live a remarkable life. You can fall in love with your life and every single aspect of it. A lot of us get really addicted to the dramas and the telling the stories about how things aren't working out and blah, 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 blah. Life doesn't have to be lived that way. That's a choice. And so, I'm truly dedicated to inspiring women, well, women and men both, but I primarily work with women, to just rock their lives and just really truly fall in love with themselves and everything in their life.
Awesome. So if you want to have a truly remarkable life, hook up, connect with Bri Seeley. Go over to briseeley.com/mentor. The address is on the screen. It'll be in the closing credits. And until next time, make it a great day.